I'm Todd Kelly, and just to explain before I talk about that is I'd like to let you know that when I was diagnosed in March of 2013 with ALS, I didn't get into advocacy immediately. I mean, when you're diagnosed, as many of you may know, there's a flurry of activity that has to go on. I mean, at the time my two sons were in college, my daughter was in junior high. We realized my wife needed to get a job that was going to have some kind of medical benefits since I would be losing my job eventually. So she went back to full-time school to get a nursing degree. Other things happened, like, for example, our community got together around here and they surprised me with a GoFundMe page, and it was a bucket list trip to England and Ireland for my whole family, which was wonderful, which was set up. And then also there are things I had to do. As my legs got weaker, I had to take driving lessons to learn how to use hand controls, and OVR sponsored that. Team Gleason sponsored me so that I could do voice banking, so I could use Model Talker. And then I also kept teaching. I directed many plays for about 4 more years, and I was able to teach a full 6 years beyond my diagnosis. So there was a lot happening, and I really couldn't get too involved in advocacy. I did some things. Terry will remember in 2014, we did the Season of Giving letter with my family. I also worked with a videographer, Tom Camano, who was doing a documentary about the ALS Hope Foundation and about Dr. Hyman Patterson. I spoke at the ALS Hope Foundation Gala in 2018 and various other things. So that's where I'm coming from. Finally, in 2019, in the fall, it was, I think, August, my wife and I had this CRLI training, and it gave me an opportunity to start thinking of how I could do more for ALS advocacy. My progression, as you can tell, has been relatively slow, and there's many advantages about that. Obviously, I've had time to adapt and adjust, but the negative side is, yesterday, I know you talked a lot about clinical trials. I couldn't get into any clinical trials because my progression was slow. They didn't want me. They want people whose progression is going very quickly so they can see a change in whatever treatment they're trying. So I wasn't eligible. And after 3 years, really, they don't want you into trials as well. So I took this course with my wife. We were so excited about all the cool ideas we could do here. And we were looking for just the right thing. And then the pandemic hit, and there weren't a lot of opportunities. Now, Neil's, Dr. Bedlack's organization, does a great job sending out information. They send out listings of clinical trials. They do meetings, webinars, other information. And it was near the end of May last year when I got a particular email from Neil's, and I'm going to try to pull it up here. I'm not used to this share the screen option, so give me a second here. Give me 1 second here. Let's see if this works. Did my screen come up? There we go. Can everyone see that?
No, it didn't come up.
Hit share, Todd. There's a button that says share. Hit the share.
The button says share.
The green.
Middle bottom, green
Middle
button.
bottom. I'm looking.
You may have to hover your pointer near the bottom of the screen. There should be a green share screen.
I'm clicking on that right now.
Okay, and then it pops up a window.
Yes, it pops up a window.
And then you can choose to do it.
Here we go.
Window or the whole screen.
One. Hold control. Okay, no, I just want that one. Okay, here we go. Hold on.
Yep.
Okay. It's a good thing I'm not teaching right now because I never learned all these Zoom things. Here's what came across, and I got really excited about this because it was something I was looking for. And this is what Dr. Ostrow was just talking about. Individuals living with ALS or their caregivers, your input is needed to help review biomedical research proposals. General Dynamics Information Technology, GDIT, is contracted by the Department of Defense Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs, CDMRP, to recruit individuals living with ALS or their caregivers to serve as consumer reviewers for the ALS research program, ALSRP. Man, that is a scary lot of abbreviations there. But despite that, I went on. Consumer reviewers serve on panels reviewing biomedical grant applications to support the development of highly innovative and impactful research. Consumer reviewers act as lay experts on ALS and bring their experience and perspectives to the evaluation of medical research applications. They represent the ALS community and provide crucial input to the panel, serving alongside scientific and medical experts to represent those most directly affected by the disease. And then the last part was kind of nice. Consumer reviewers are engaged by GDIT as consultants and are compensated by GDIT. So, hey, some food money there. So that's good. How do I get rid of this then?
End share.
End share.
In the bottom right, if you hover over the bottom right, there's, oh,
That one's on the top.
could be anywhere, right? It could
Mine's
be
up
anywhere. I'm
top
sorry.
right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Stop
could be
share.
anywhere.
There we go. All right, am I back?
Yep.
Okay, good. There we go. All right. So, despite the preponderance of scary abbreviations, I decided I really think this was something I'd like to learn more about. And so then I went to that website that Dr. Ostral shared, and I found out all kinds of things. I found out, about how it started for ALS in 2007 and how eventually it increased. And like we found out, it's been increased again to $40 million for this upcoming year, which is a great deal for ALS research. I know it's kind of a drop in the bucket for the government. I guess I should say, as a bad pun, a drop in the ALS ice bucket, but it really is a substantial increase that's really helped. I found out that as a consumer reviewer, I would have a little more than a month to read several scientific research proposals. I would write short reviews for each and provide an initial score. Later, I would read the reviews of scientists and clinicians and have the opportunity to revise my review and score. Ultimately, the entire panel would meet in September for 2 days to discuss all the proposals and provide final scores. Okay, reading, writing, discussion. I was a high school English teacher for 35 years. This is exactly what I always did. So I said, this is great. This is a thing of advocacy I can do. This is in my wheelhouse. So I mulled it over that night. And the next morning when I got up, I said to my wife, I've been reading about this thing. I want to do it. Can I go for it? And she said, sure. All right. So that seems simple enough, but there's actually a process to get into this. It was like getting a job. I had to write a resume. I hadn't done that in 20 some years. I had to write responses to written questions. I had to do a phone interview. I needed a letter of recommendation from someone in the ALS community. So of course, Dr. Terry Hyman Patterson wrote that for the ALS Hope Foundation for me. So after all of that, I got the gig. It's really a fantastic program, folks. And if it's something you think you can do, or it's something you think you might want to try to do, I would highly recommend it. I met with a number of the other consumer reviewers. These are pals and cows. Most of the people were pals, and there were different people at different parts in the progression. Some of them clearly were having difficulties with speaking, yet they were on the panel. There was one member of the panel who used a computer voice interface so that he could still be part of a panel. You could even, they were very inclusive. If you couldn't type, you could have someone come on, as long as they shared the same confidentiality agreement, and type the things for you. As a consumer reviewer, I was to focus on two parts of the applications, on what's called the lay abstract, where supposedly the scientists say it in a simple way that anyone can understand, and the impact statement, although in each case I was given the full research report. And I found that helpful because sometimes I did have to go back into that to understand what was going on. I used to think that English teachers were verbose, but having read some of these scientific journals and these scientific research projects, they're much worse. Trust me. I don't think I'm giving anything away here, but in reading one, they talked about testing this on, excuse me. They talked about testing this product on, and then this list of like 8 words that made this gigantic phrase. And I kept thinking, what are they talking about? What are they talking about? And after about 5 minutes, I figured out it was monkeys. That's what they wanted to say. They were testing it on monkeys, but they couldn't say monkeys. They had to use 8 words. I learned new vocabulary. I have never used the word emesis in my life, but now I know it's a nice fancy way of saying vomiting, but I had never heard that in all my years of teaching. So I learned some things that way. The other thing I found kind of confusing for me were all the abbreviations and acronyms. There's usually a glossary, a list. I'm used to that from education, but they're different. For example, I didn't know what GLP meant. GLP, I didn't know what it was. And then I looked it up and I found it meant good laboratory practices. And that made a lot of sense. Throughout the process, I got the support of my SRO. That's called your scientific research officer. Well, I came from a high school. In high school, we have an SRO. That's your student resource officer. That's the cop in the school. So every time I kept talking to my SRO, I keep thinking, this person's not a cop. I was a little confused there. And then, I mean, it works the other way too. I was, like I said, I was an English teacher for years. About a year after I was diagnosed, I was the head of the department. I had to send out a notice about this new program we had, which was called Alternative Learning Strategies. And someone in education thought it would be really cool to abbreviate that as ALS. Bad choice. Half my department wouldn't open the document because they thought I sent them something that I meant to send to my doctor by mistake. So, you know, I don't know who makes these choices, but these are some things I learned. The recruiter who got me involved in this cautioned me that there was going to be a lot of reading involved with this. But trust me, as a high school English teacher, and also I read for the College Board with AP, where we would read thousands of student essays for 7 days straight, 8 hours a day. This was nothing compared to that. All right, so I did the reading, did the work, was ready for the 2-day session. This was in September. Now, normally we would all meet down near Washington, somewhere down there. But of course, wonderful year, we decided we'd have to do it through Zoom, just like this meeting. I mean, you know, there are certain advantages. Number one, you know, there's no travel involved, which was very convenient for someone with ALS, you know, because I have problems with mobility. You know, easy bathroom facilities because I'm at home. Good work area set up. I had 2 computers set up. I had papers. I had my cup of coffee. I was ready to go. It was great. But there were disadvantages, of course, to Zoom. And you found that out too. You don't get the nice meals. You know, that's always good. And what I really missed was the social networking time, talking with the people when you weren't just focused on what was going on. So I did miss that greatly. I'm glad that Terry here has these like breakout sessions. I guess you had a social hour last night. That was good because I find that's very valuable. And the other thing was just like now, when we actually did the presentations, you guys are all very polite and you've all muted yourselves very nicely. But when I say something, I'm a high school English teacher. I expect a reaction in some way. I mean, I always considered my 50-minute class kind of like a stand-up routine. Not that it was funny, but that I would keep my audience involved and I could tell if kids were learning or not. See, if I say something funny now and you think it's funny, I have to look at your pictures to see if you're actually laughing or groaning. Or, you know, if I say something incredibly profound, I expect everyone to be like nodding along. So that was one thing that made it difficult. It also led to some odd things. Again, I'm not being specific here because of confidentiality, but the one reviewer kept coughing when he would talk to us. And we found out it was because in his his office where he was, the wildfires that were going on last year at this time. The smoke was coming into his room and he was having trouble with that. In fact, we were a little concerned. We said, are you sure you should be there? You know, maybe you want to move, but it was supposedly everywhere along. Okay, so as I said, there are strict confidentiality agreements. There's proprietary information, so I can't really share a lot of specifics, but I want you to know it was an incredibly valuable and inspiring experience. I felt that the input that I provided was sincerely valued by highly qualified scientists and clinicians. If I had a question and I asked it, they were more than willing to answer it. I learned so much more about ALS. And I, you know, as a teacher, educator, I'm also a lifelong student. And I love to learn. And the more I learned, the more I feel confident knowing that what's being done or what's attempting to be done for this makes me feel better as a PALS. I probably learned more about the SOD1 mouse than any human person needs to know, or the SOD1 mouse, although I'm sure Terry knows a lot more than I do about that. But the other stuff I learned was incredibly valuable. Because of the confidentiality, that was the one drawback, you know, because I learned some wonderful things. I would have loved to, you know, talk with Terry about those afterwards, but I can't. But I wanted to let you know that my score did count just like everyone else's. And I found that wonderful. We were able to fully discuss and score all the proposals in a 2-day period. Oh, by the way, the other thing about Zoom that's annoying is right now I've got a cat here who wants my attention because this is his time to sit in my lap. So in a moment, if he leaps up here, you'll forgive me. With these projects, because of the time, I realized that maybe some of the things I was reviewing, probably most of them, would never really impact me. But I was hoping that I could play some small part in helping future PALS and encouraging this invaluable research. I kept that constantly in mind, that I needed to represent all people with ALS. For example, if a study was just designed to help familial ALS patients, you know, about 10% of the population, I don't have that sporadic, that wasn't something for me to consider. I wanted to help ALS patients and speak for all of them. So that was just as valuable. And besides, anything that would help there would probably come back to help sporadic as well. Although this panel is not for everyone, I anticipate with the increase in funding that Dr. Ostrow talked about, going up to $40 million, they're going to need more people. And again, I liked your idea of maybe having some kind of training session to help with that. Luckily, having been on many evaluative committees in the past, because of my work as a teacher and, like I said, for the College Board, it wasn't difficult for me to kind of adjust to this because I've done this type of work before. My final thoughts here, my primary message to anyone who's listening right now, anyone who's becoming an ALS ambassador, what you need to do is find the vehicle that works for you and your particular skill set and use that. If fundraising is your forte, then go for it. If you can organize a 5K, great. If you want to coordinate and attend a political rally, you know, pursue that. My experience as a high school English teacher and AP reader made becoming a consumer reviewer a logical and personally rewarding means for me to contribute to the ALS community. So those are my thoughts. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.